Welcome to I Don't Get It, the pop culture good of my lawn cast. This show features the open and minor musings of two, count them two, a non-zero number of early 50s curmudgeons, each who stares down the prospect of entertainment irrelevance, and we are well aware of it. I'm your co-host, Bill Scurry, founder and proprietor of American Senior Enterprises, which is the last whaling enterprise to operate out of Bedford, Massachusetts, Noah, setting out on the ink-dark sea daily to tempt Neptune's fate.
That's very dramatic, Bill. I really like that. It's very clever.
It's you know what? It's monstrous. It's inhumane. It's inappropriate. It's anarchic. It is an anachronism, no less. Too. You know, there's no room for ambergris and blubber and all the products of a boiled whale. But we do it anyway. You know, we just out of spite, I guess.
What is ambergris used for? It's used for like perfume and cologne, right?
It was, yeah. Why that is a good question. I think I probably didn't know why in particular. Well, what it's an accretion or is it a secretion inside of a gland?
I don't think it's so. It comes from a whale. Yeah, it's some gland thing. It's not mucus.
No,
it's whatever it is when you really boil it down. No pun intended. It's gross, but it is it is something that whales secrete. You don't have to kill the whale to get it, right? Like it can be found floating sometime.
Well,
it was to kill the whale
most of the time. Well, they would. The most expedient thing people did was like, we should just destroy this entire whale to get this thing that probably weighs 4 to 5 pounds out of its wherever it was buried, somewhere in the throat or the stomach. I can't exactly remember where the ambergris was inside the gland. But also, how do you even come to be aware there's this thing that you love inside of a fucking? Oh, there's one gross thing inside of a gigantic gross, and then women are going to love putting this on their pulse points.
You know, it just goes to show how people have tried everything. Like, how did they discover to eat crabs and lobster, right? You know, which every time I think of that, I'm like, by that logic, every indigenous culture ever has tried to eat rocks. They have. Why wouldn't they try? If they try everything. So every culture, indigenous culture without, has tried to eat rocks because they're there. If we can eat these damn things, it's going to be awesome. And you know what? A small number of times it worked out. Salt, minerals,
Well, there's a lot of things like, I was going to say the potato could be mistaken for a rock if you're sort of looking at it obliquely. And you really have to you're going to go through the trouble boiling everything and eating it to see what you can get out of it. It's true.
Hello, folks. I'm Noah Tarnow. I'm the founder and the senior quiz master of the Big Quiz Thing, the Trivia Game Show Spectacular. And like every episode of I Don't Get It, and this is we're going to skip at least 1 week after this, Bill. Travel beckons, right?
At least one, yeah. We will be in different places.
1, maybe 2. Yeah.
You're going to Pyongyang for a Jenga tournament.
I'm not going to Pyongyang. I don't know.
I got my notes wrong.
I'm going to a country slightly less repressive than North Korea. It's called the United States of America.
Slightly less. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm going to Minnesota and back home, New York. City so nice they named it twice. And you're a different part of New York, not the city, right?
Correct. Yeah, I will be upstate in these things. And yes, I'm going to the Caribbean as well. I haven't been scuba diving in a while, so yeah.
Yeah. We're travelers, folks. And but on this show, we talk about stuff that's hot, that's happening. We're about a week late on this one, Bill. I got to confess. It was my idea, but we should have. It's over now. The festival's over, right?
Like Roxette sang in the Pretty Woman soundtrack, no, it's over now. And it ended on October 9th, I believe, was the
yes,
the outtake.
And today, you know what today is, Bill?
Yeah, it's Saturday, October 11th.
It is the 50th anniversary of both Saturday Night Live, debuted 50 years ago tonight, and today is Bill and Hillary Clinton's 50th wedding anniversary. They got married in the night George Carlin hosted the first episode of SNL.
75 was a big year, my friend.
Yes, it was. So we're talking about the Riyadh Comedy Festival, which it was a couple weeks long, just wrapped up in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. By the way, confession, when I was a kid, I remember a couple times getting Riyadh mixed up with Reykjavik.
Yes.
How about that?
I mean, they're kind of, one has hot springs, the other one beheads journalists.
Hot sand.
Sands, yeah.
The other murders journalists, yeah. I've been to Reykjavik. It's lovely. I don't think Riyadh would be as nice. So, I mean, you'll give more details, but the city of Riyadh did its first comedy festival, a stacked lineup of big names, a couple dozen people. I've heard of like half of them, so that already it's clearly A-list because I have left the comedy world. And it garnered controversy because Saudi Arabia, there's a few differences between Saudi Arabia and Iceland. And one of them is that Saudi Arabia is it's a pretty repressive country. There's some unnice things going on there. And of course, the festival was sponsored by, created by, the comedians were directly paid by the government of Saudi Arabia. It's part of their initiative, the Crown Prince there's initiative. It's got some wacky name. He wants to modernize the city, make it like the UAE, a destination for conventions and festivals and things like that. So comedy festival is a keystone of that effort. I'm sure they'll do it again next year. So Bill, give us the 2x211 on the Riyadh Comedy Fest.
Yeah, and just as a little bit of a gazetteer or a legend, I believe we're going to refer to the monarch of Saudi Arabia. His name is Mohammed bin Salman, but yes. The appellative is usually MBS, and that's MBS. What we most likely just default. So when we say MBS, we're talking about Mohammed bin Salman, the young.
We're not talking about IBS, not to be confused with that.
Which would you rather have, frankly? That's my question. Which is easier to deal with?
I don't know. It's both
if I'm not mistaken, he is the crown prince. He's not the king because his father or his uncle is still extant, but he's sort of just like an honorary position. It's kind of weird. He's like the figurehead legally, but in name, I don't know, something strange. But
I don't pay attention, but it might be a case where like dad is like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to sit on my throne. I'm just going to sit and eat and nail a prostitute every now and again and have my personal doctor attend to me 20 hours a day and deal with my IBS. And he lets other people actually run the country, including his son, who he's grooming.
No, it's his nephew. I think it's not his
nephew, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to this shit. So you tell me, but that would be my conjecture.
Yeah, the House of Saud is a strange place.
Yes.
Most of my knowledge was from Lawrence of Arabia, but that's a different story.
Yes,
okay.
British Benumania. Wait, so it's the House of Saud. So what happens when over time monarchies change? Like how we're still in the House of Windsor in the UK, right?
Yeah.
But it's only been the House of Windsor like 150 years, right?
Well, I mean, remember that they changed their name. Windsor was the House of Saxe-Coburg because they were all Germans. Yeah.
Anyway, but when we enter a different house,
yes,
in Saudi Arabia, will they change the name of the country? Because it's the House of Saudi Arabia.
I think at this point, the original Saudi Prince Faisal, it's like they're not going to change it. This is a for the rest of history. I don't know. Anyway,
well, I clearly don't know enough about Saudi Arabia, so tell me a little about Saudi. This at least the Saudi Arabia as concerns controversial comedy festival.
Well, Saudi Arabia is a country, like Noah says, and it's highly desertified.
Shaped like a snow boot. I always thought as a kid,
like a snow boot, ironically for
like a big winter boot,
hot sand. Ironic. So the comedy festival took place from September 26 to October 9 at a place called Boulevard City, which sounds like a first pass name if there ever was one. In Riyadh,
like Street Town. It's a terrible name.
Right, exactly. Highlight City. The festival featured many high-profile English-language comedians from different countries in the English-language world, the Anglophone world. It has stirred up shitloads of controversy, as you could probably expect. The event was announced on July 23rd by Turki al-Sheikh. Turki. I'm not just making it up. This is not like Noah said I was just making something racist by calling the guy Turki al-Sheikh. It's his actual name. He's the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority, which was part of Saudi Arabia. The plan you're referring to, Noah, is something called the Vision 2030, about repositioning as not just this, rapacious backwater country that essentially is under Sharia law, like, most other places up and down the Gulf, whether it's the Emirates or if it's Bahrain or Qatar. I think Yemen, it's pretty much a common feature of these places. In that respect, Saudi Arabia is not unique, but they are trying to diversify their economy and they're trying to make themselves look more like the Emirates, Sharjah, Dubai, and the fuck is the third one I'm missing? Anyway, it's not important, but Abu Dhabi, that's it. So
that's where we'll stay.
The event drew criticism due to Saudi Arabia's poor human rights record, which is known all the world around and has become a really big bone of contention in the United States. Also, this festival has had a lot of censorship rules contractually imposed on the performers. So several comedians, who were invited to perform, they were given, offer sheets through their management. They declined, and then they spoke out about it one by one.
Shane Gillis, who were this woman I never heard of.
Yeah, Atsuko Okatsuka. who's Japanese American from the West Coast, she piped up and she sort of put a redacted offer sheet on social media. And then Mike Birbiglia and Shane Gillis.
Mike Birbiglia said no.
They came up, they echoed, they said, yeah, I was offered as well. Like, I think that maybe people didn't know that this was like lateral, that it went to many different comedians. They were testing the waters. And so there was this bulwark of comedians who all said no, for obvious reasons, one would assume, and we'll get into that. So human rights organizations have urged the performers to speak out against any human rights abuses and not be complicit in the whitewashing of their culture, which, say what you will about it. It's a major world power. It's an economic powerhouse, but there's still a lot of things that we would say are retrograde about it, for sure. So a brief roster of comics who took the money from them. Now, this is not complete by any means. MBS, was looking to whitewash the bonesaw regime. And so some of these people went there. You get Aziz Ansari, you got Wayne Brady, Hannibal Buress, Billy Burr, Jimmy Carr. I believe he's a United Kingdom comedian. I know his name.
Yeah, he used to be on all the Comedy Central roasts.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of humor.
Yeah, I know his name, but so of course Chappelle was the whale they landed. They definitely wanted Chappelle. I'm sure they gave Chappelle.
He got close to $2 million.
Yeah, 3 commas, man, exactly. Louis C.K., another whale. Whitney, 2 commas, yeah. Trace commas. Yeah. Whitney Cummings, Pete Davidson, Zarnagarg,
By the way, Pete Davidson is the ultimate irony. Everyone's pointing this out. Because as Pete Davidson likes to make a lot of hay from his comedy, his father was killed in 9/11. He was a firefighter.
Aren't these the same guys? Exactly. So, yeah, Davidson, Zarnagarg, Kevin Hart, of course, who is worth many, many, many millions of dollars, is not hurting for, Slurpee money or anything like that. Gabriel Iglesias, Jessica Curson, who was a local New York product, I think, and me and Noah both sort of bumped into her at different parts. So that's she's a little bit of
Zach Braff's stepsister.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah.
Joe Coy, who hosted the Emmys, I believe, a couple years back. Bobby Lee, the Korean-American comedian who was on Mad TV. Sebastian Maniscalco, who's a headliner. That guy's got some juice to him.
He plays huge places in Vegas.
Yep. New York, too. He sells out whatever he plays. My friend goes to see them. Jeff Ross, the bald baby-looking comedian who was the head of the Friars Club for a long time. Old school Borscht Belt type guy. He's there. Obviously, a little Jewish going to Saudi Arabia. What can I say?
Jewish. He used to, before our time, he was a regular at the open mic where you and I met.
Yeah, exactly. I knew. I was aware of him on TV, but at that point he graduated. Yeah, Chris Tucker, again, many others coming there. So Birbiglia, Shane Gillis, and this comedian Atsuko Okatsuka were invited to perform, declined, and then they spoke out and created a chorus of moral voices ranging from guys like Marin, who I think Marin kind of became the clearinghouse. And so in so many words, he stated very elegantly and clearly and briskly, the kind of shit you were dealing with that this would be getting into. Zach Woods from The Office, UCB Hand made a pretty influential...
David, I'm going to quote David Cross.
Yeah, David Cross, exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
Pretty, fiery. You want me to quote it now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so he said, and by the way, and Marin admits this, like, he wasn't asked to do it, and he says, look, it's easier to have principles when you're not really turning anything down. David Cross said, I am disgusted and deeply disappointed in this whole gross thing. That people I admire with unarguable talent would condone this totalitarian fiefdom for what? A 4th house? A boat? More sneakers? We can never again take seriously anything these comedians complain about unless it's complaining that we don't support enough torture and mass executions of journalists and LGBTQT, they got to come up with something shorter, LGBTQT peace activists here in the States, or that we don't terrorize enough Americans by flying planes into our buildings. Yeah, so he's not happy.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the roster, Noah, and I think we have our controversy in front of us. So this was an easy, he's a lot of meat on the bone. I mean, when it's over, I think will we be talking about it in a while? I don't know, but I just feel like there's just so much bullshit stocked into this it's like 10 pounds of bullshit in a 5-pound bag, That's why it's worth talking about here.
Well, it depends what you mean by bullshit. I mean, there are some real issues to discuss here, right?
Yeah, well, right. I'm saying is that's the real issue is bullshit, and also the sort of bullshit of hypocrisy, blah, blah, blah. So, what did you make of what did your research teach you here?
Well, it is sad, but is unsurprising. We like to think that comedians are the last bastion of honesty in our culture. You said before the mics went hot, you said how it's kind of amazing how comedy stand-up in particular keeps growing. And I think in our media, where it feels like a lot of things are retracting.
Yeah, it's durable.
I think a lot of this stand up is cheap. Netflix can make a stand up special for a fraction of what they make a new episode of The Hunting Wives or whatever. But also, we're looking for truth tellers. We're looking for some kind of way to pierce the veil. And I often say on the show, one of the things I really admire about stand-up is one of the few sectors of entertainment where merit still seems to be the dominant force in success. I watch professional comics, and even if they're not my cup of tea, I can almost always say, like, they earned this, they're good. Or even if they didn't do the work, they have such undeniable raw talent.
Matt Rife, I agree with you, Noah.
Yeah, Matt Rife, like, we agree, like, not our cup of tea, annoying, but the guy knows his shit,
Yeah, it's definitely annoying.
He didn't get there just because he sucked someone's dick. So, pardon my language. So I still think there's a lot of merit to the idea that they are the last truth tellers in our society. But then when you see them sell out, which I think is an accurate term here, and, agree, not telling truth to power, sign the contract that says they won't do X, they won't do Y, they won't do Z, and bend the knee to a pernicious force like this, it hits hard. And by the way, it's, many people who talked about this have drawn a distinction between Bill Burr, for example, who really disappoints me because I really like Bill Burr. Chappelle can go fuck himself, but I've talked about that before. Burr, I thought was one of these guys who tells it like it is, and he's gotten so much blowback because a lot of people view him that way. And his responses have been really, I think, tone deaf and
shabby.
Self-aggressive. Like, his first response is like, well, it was an amazing experience. Like, you're evading the point. And Chappelle, too. Chappelle said something like, you have more freedom to talk in Saudi Arabia than the United States. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Mr. I'm canceled, and 6 months later I win a Mark Twain prize? Like, get the fuck out of here. So we want to believe these people are always going to tell the truth. We want to believe that these people are more morally pure than the average person. And, Saudi Arabia, this Vision 3030 or 2030, we know we got a long way to go. This Vision 2030 thing, they created that new golf circuit, Live Golf, right? And that's lasted a few years now, right? So this hits harder than that because no one looks at sports figures. I mean, if you look at sports figures as paragons of virtue, you're a fucking moron.
Yeah, but guys I think Phil Mickelson and Roy, they got hit with the same thing too, where it's like, how much fucking money do you need for golf spikes?
This is more powerful, and it hasn't hurt their careers, right? This hits harder than music festival that's going to happen in Saudi Arabia soon with Benson Boone and Calvin Harris and Halsey. It especially hits hard when Bill Burr, and again, I think Chappelle's full of shit, but a lot of people think he's raw and real. Yeah, the fact that he does jokes about 10-year-old hip hop songs, having dirty lyrics about, going down on a woman. Yeah, what a truth teller. Sorry, I'm very cynical about Dave Chappelle. But again, it's unsurprising when you really step back because our culture is so completely steeped in end of the empire cynicism and greed that this is a predictable outcome, If it's all just a fucking joke, if we have an incoherent maniac flouting the law, running the country, what's the point of anything? Just do whatever the hell you want. The revolution has been sold, so why not perform in Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, we're still at a place where you can't flat out say that in such stark terms to justify it, but I'm sure it's what a lot of people think. And it's also sad, I mean, very similarly, but not just being let down by the comedians, but being let down by comedy as a concept. This is a whitewashing. They talk about, they haven't come up with a clever term for this yet, but they talk about stuff like live sports and the World Cup being in Qatar as sports washing, whitewashing by using sports to say, hey, this place is just a Western place. It's fun. We like to have a good time. We're just like you. So I guess you could call this comedy washing. That's pretty bad.
They were at the Olympics in Beijing back in 2008 or whatever it was something similar. That was one of the...
Sure. You could say that too. it's really sad to see comedy as an art form get degraded like this. The corrosive effects of money, more evidence, pervert everything they touch. I'm a sports cynic. Anyone who views pro athletes as heroes, I think, is being foolish. If you're older than 12 years old, child, I'll cut them some slack. So, whatever about golf and the World Cup and even about the WWE, they've done a couple shows in Saudi Arabia that have gotten them a lot of criticism. But you want to believe comedy is the exception, because that's the whole point of it, is to punch up, is to speak truth to power. And when it doesn't, it's heartbreaking. This is sad, unsurprising, but sad.
Yeah, the list of reasons people have furnished, you mentioned Burr's was just a little blurry. It kind of it lacked nuance, that sort of thing. Let
me add one thing he said. He kept making up new excuses. There was a good article in Defector, which I'm going to quote in a bit. But another excuse was, he's like, well, we're spreading comedy, we're talking to people. But one difference is, if this had been like an indie comedy festival put on by citizens of Saudi Arabia, that's one thing. But the fact that it is put on by MBS, by the government, and you're taking the money directly from them, I think makes it problematic. Anyway,
no, I would agree. So yeah, Davidson, Pete Davidson didn't really say anything. I don't know. According to type, he didn't say anything. Didn't sound like him. It was probably half-assed. He just went into it because they offered him $1 million or whatever. Bill Burr had that sort of just folks excuse. Actually, one of the things Bill Burr said was, I think he said they had fast food there. He was surprised to see KFC in Riyadh. He was like, oh, look, they're just like us, that's their thing over there. He doesn't like Peter Griffin, but you get my point. So Aziz...
That kind of sounded like Bill Burr. I could hear the Bill Burr in
that. Aziz gave the most nuance. Aziz went on Kimmel. And, to Kimmel's credit, he did push the button a little bit. He didn't make Aziz...
Kimmel's now our number one free speech warrior.
Yeah, Kimmel and David Brinkley and Cronkite, exactly. He's fucking Edward R. Murrow. But it's like he kind of pushed Aziz to say something. And Aziz said that his aunt lived there for many years. He's Indian American. His family's from, the diaspora from Southeast Asia.
I believe his family's Muslim, right?
Yeah. They're Muslim Indian, exactly. He lives in London now on top of everything else. And, he said something about his appeal. First of all, Aziz gave his honorarium or fee to human rights groups.
They turned it down.
Oh, I didn't know that. That part didn't say.
They turned it down.
Nice. Wow.
And I'll quote them in a minute, but yeah.
Whip crack.
They turned it down. Yeah.
Well, okay, but he attempted to do it. I'm sure he meant it. He's got plenty of money from what I assume. But it's like he said that... make what you will of this. He says, look, there's plenty of people who are moderate, and there are plenty. It's a young country. It's like Iran, where it has this fucking baby boom of people. It's like there's a crazy percentage under 30 years old, and it's like they're starving for our culture. It's like they're living inside this autocracy full of lunatics and nutty birthright bullshit, where they're bone sawing people and God knows what else we don't know about. And Aziz was like, I wanted to talk to those people. And I was like, you know what? Is it good faith? You could, that was just his one take, And it's like, I understand the want to be a diplomat. And the thing is, it's like, America has sent many, many cultural diplomats. When Ali fought Frazier, where was that, in Congo?
No, in
Manila? Was that
the... Well, I guess it's now Congo, yeah.
Yeah, the Rumble in the Jungle, yeah.
But at the time, it was called Zaire.
I mean, that's enormous. It's like he's going to a black country. It's like that is sending soft power overseas. That really meant something. I mean, it's a different ballgame. We wasn't trying to whitewash the Zaire government or the Congolese government, but it was completely different. But, I'm going to assume that most of these guys, Chris Tucker and Kevin Hart, just wanted the fucking oversized novelty checks, with the... They wanted to sit in front of the camera, and
At this point, they don't even want the money. They'd rather just have the big check to frame on the wall.
But Noah, as I said beforehand, I have trouble wrapping my head around the gay female Jews who took the money. What's up with that?
Well, there's a Riyadh Comedy Festival. I don't know if you heard about that. This is true. There's a Riyadh, Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival. I mean, how do you even promote that? Like, from the folks that brought you 9/11.
again, the why question's a bit broken up here. Why did the comedians do it? And why are people so up in arms about it?
Well, I mean, let's talk about why it's popular and fuck them. Why we already know why they did it, because they were paid a shitload. What did Lone Star
money.
say in Spaceballs? We're not just doing it for the money. We're doing it for a shitload of money. So the thing is,
hey, you haven't heard my excuse. Personal gain.
I don't think, by the way, that any of this stuff has been like we can't actually see it. It's not like this is the newest drop. I don't think. I mean, you might get their comedy if these people are going to do this stuff in sets, but we can't actually watch this. This was.
They didn't film any of it. There's no footage online.
Right. So it's like, it's not popular because it's the latest drop. This isn't The Life of a Showgirl by Taylor Swift, which is causing a sensation. This is we just have to refer to whatever it is that happened overseas that we will never get a hold of. We'll just have eyewitness accounts for the most part. But look, this is a moment for everyone on this fucking artifact called social media and a country called Podcastlandia. They're slam dunking on a bunch of cultural commentators all at once whose whole fucking thing is raging against what you can't say. And, the orthodoxy or the heterodoxy of what you can't fucking say. And then they go and do this, which of course it's beyond hypocrisy. The thing is, though, it's like, it's almost like the protestations for years and years and years. Going back, Noah, were those somehow bad faith arguments? Were they bad faith actors drumming up, we
live in the era of bad faith arguments.
It is true. And it's like, that's why this happened.
We're run by a political party that is nothing but bad faith arguments.
Do you think that this would have turned out, if this was during Obama, granted Obama hadn't whitewashed the MBS regime and they hadn't bonesawed as many journalists at that point. But I'm saying, I think that this would not have had a permission structure for as many people to get on board if it had been in a slightly different, more recent epoch, an environment. This would have been different, I think.
We're a more cynical culture.
Yeah, right. I mean,
when Obama was president, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, within 10 months, here we are already. So this made targets of disappointing guys, and not just guys, of course, but women are there too. Chappelle, Billy Burr, that sort of thing. Who, Chappelle is an imperfect messenger. Chappelle is an intelligent guy, and Chappelle, again, I think, has gotten pretty brutish in BRUT.
He is a raging egomaniac. He is so insular, and he thinks he's smarter than everyone else.
And look, all I care about, do that, be funny, but it's like, don't be transphobic. All of a sudden you lose it. And it's like Chappelle lost me when he just started to fucking Ricky Gervais telling trans jokes. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it.
Don't talk about it. Don't fucking talk. Talk about something else. It makes you uncomfortable. Fine. Don't fucking talk about it.
Well, so
leave them alone. Jesus.
But it's like, it's popular because we get 48 hours in which to rub their faces in it like a dog that made a mess on the rug. Unfortunately, before this goes away, we get angry at the next fucking thing, which is, it's backing up right now. That we're hearing the backup chime of the next outrage that's coming. And to be fair, there are way more serious, strident things that are happening in the world. This is a luxury to be able to talk about something that is this ephemeral and not important for the most part.
Well, I think it is a microcosm of a bigger issue.
It is.
Like whatever happened to integrity, whatever happened to principle, what is happening to truth, right?
Yeah.
If the truth tellers, if the court jester has been completely neutered, well, why did they do it? Yeah, money, but also comedians are graspers. They're desperate. No matter how successful you are as a comedian, you're always, this is why there's a term that some intellectual used about comedy, abasement. You're putting yourself on stage and abasing yourself. You're opening yourself up. You have this, I've often said, I'm glad I didn't make it as a comic. I tried for 3 years. I got basically nowhere. And there are times I miss it, but I'm ultimately glad I didn't make it because I just felt like successful comedians, most of them have something inside them that is corrosive.
That's true. I can record. Yeah, you got you on that one.
I'm glad I can live without comedy, right? I think it's a sign of health. So look, I have some of that with my performance, which is not comedy. And we'll get to, would I do this, all that. But it's a gig. It's a big gig. Even if you don't want the money to buy more sneakers, you want the money as a seal of approval, right? It's a big fucking gig.
Approbation.
I'm going to go.
Approbation from the universe.
Do it. Yeah. I mean, we'll get to this. Saudi Arabia, I don't know, but someone offered me a gig in 95% of countries on earth, I wouldn't think twice. I didn't think twice about doing something for McDonald's, even though I call them the worst company on earth. I'd never stop for a second to consider whether I shouldn't do McDonald's. I did stop for a second to think if I shouldn't do this Christian private school in Texas, where one of the founders is I forget the term, but basically a Project 2025 type guy. I did pause. I ultimately did it. Call me a sellout. That would be fair. Anyway, why are people upset about this? We search for purity. We want heroes. We need heroes. And comedians often seem like heroes. They're the ones exposing the truth, telling truth to power. Before we got on the mics, you said you were surprised to see Hannibal Buress there. And Hannibal Buress is, I would say, most famous for the guy who finally pushed the rumors about Bill Cosby to the fore that forced people to confront it, what Bill Cosby had done and who he was. So, if the people who are exposing evil are, have been co-opted by the man in the worst ways possible, where are we? Where are we? We are hopeless. We have no hope for the future. And, they are not only doing their bidding, they're doing their bidding. They have agreed to be neutered, right? They're not going to get up there and use the opportunity to talk about how evil Saudi Arabia is or make 9/11 jokes. I'm sure you would have heard about it. I'm sure all of them behaved. I'm sure no one said anything remotely controversial.
In fact, comedians were fired who accepted the term, signed it. They were fired in advance. Yep, among others, yes.
Yeah. It's interesting because when the Human Rights Watch, I don't know if this was when they turned down Ansari's donation, but they said, there's a quote here from someone at Human Rights Watch, comedians receiving hefty sums from Saudi authorities shouldn't be silent on prohibited topics in Saudi like human rights or free speech. Everyone performing in Riyadh should use this high-profile opportunity to call for the release of detained Saudi activists. Yeah, well, good luck with that. They'll get right on that. I guess it's a nice thing to say, but we're at a point where, why would they do that? And another reason why people are all over this is, look, for better or for ill, the corrosiveness of our media, of social media, is we're always looking for hypocrites to call out. We're always looking for people to attack. We're always looking to, for lack of a better term, cancel people. The ongoing search for hypocrisy. Great soap opera, by the way. So here's another quote from David Cross. All of your bitching about cancel culture and freedom of speech and all that shit, done. You don't get to talk about it ever again. By now, we've all seen the contract you had to sign. So yeah, it's a hot topic, looking for hypocrites and looking to expose them. We live in a culture where the knives are out. Dave Chappelle's right about that. But, unlike Saudi Arabia, it's not literal knives.
Yeah, it was, it's tight. They just went to the desert and just fucking vibed.
They were asking me to go to the Middle East soon.
What? Where? Why?
Saudi Arabia and UAE or Dubai.
Dubai?
I think I'm going to pass.
Yeah. For the troops? Is it for the troops?
Not for the troops.
What?
It's for the Saudis.
For the Saudi princes?
Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone's doing it. It's like, for Saudis?
Noah, if you were a child once, would you have liked this?
Well, I'm going to answer this question as if I made it as a comic when I was a young man.
You were a younger man. That is true. Yeah.
And I were invited to do this. Would I do it? And of course, I'd like to say no. I pride myself now in being a man of integrity. If you're someone out there who disagrees with that assessment, fair enough. But I honestly believe that I have a fair amount of integrity. So I'd like to say I would take the principled stand against this. I used to tell a story, not even comedy, about what I do now. So, I do corporate quiz shows and quiz shows for events, and I do a lot of things for causes I believe in. And I used to say, what if I were asked to do a quiz show at, the example I used to give during the W. Bush era was a Koch brothers gathering. And I would say, yes, I would, under certain conditions, 3 conditions. 1, they're paying me a lot of money. 2, the content can be neutral. I am doing a quiz show. The topics, the questions, whatever, is all stuff that would be just as appropriate at a left-wing event. And that, by the way, that Christian school I did in Texas, that was absolutely true, right? It was all very, they weren't so tight. They let me do Disney stuff and all that. And I wasn't there, but they let us do that. And it worked out great. And the third condition is I'm still in a world where I'm not famous because I wouldn't want to lend my celebrity to this, right? But of course, now we're in an era when I think things have got more fraught. So while I wouldn't do it for, while I would do it for the Koch brothers under those conditions, I don't think I'd do it under any conditions nowadays for like Turning Point USA. That said, if someone drives a dump truck of money to my house and asks me to do Turning Point USA, I can't guarantee you I would still have this principled stand. It's so, Marin said this, it's so easy to say when no one offers it to you. But if someone offers it to you, I might sell out. Again, I didn't think twice about doing McDonald's. I jumped at it. It's the fame thing. It's loaning your fame. And this comedian, Gianmarco Cerezi, who I'd never heard of, but I'm curious about now. I listened to his podcast. He was on CNN and he said, these comedians are allowing their images and their reputations and frankly, the brand of American stand-up to be exploited for propaganda. And it's embarrassing to go on stage and tell jokes that if some of the audience members tweeted from their personal accounts could lead them to being executed. So I'm going to say I wouldn't do it because I wholeheartedly agree with that. But in the alternate universe where I actually have to make that decision, I'm not sure I would be strong enough to do it.
Well, no, I was not a comedian myself. I was comedy.
You were funny, though. You still are.
It was funny. I can be funny. I plan on being funny later today. I'll get to that later.
Yeah, looks aren't everything.
But looks, no, it's done. In my case, it's true. I smashed all the mirrors. The thing is that hoistings upon petards are always great. And I would say more of this to a degree. It's like I would have loved that as a kid. Kind of love it now. There's just something to it. I think it's...
What do you mean love what? You would love attacking it?
Yeah. The fact that there is a gigantic. I was going to say I came around a shame argument on this part too. As a kid,
it's most arguments in our world, man.
Well, as a kid, it was much easier. Like loud, noisy sort of scandals of disgrace. There's something to all of that which look attractive when it lacks nuance and it looks like there's a clear, out and out sort of bad guy or shitheel. That's easy to wrap your head around. It's, it's like there's not a lot of, there is gray, of course, but it looks more black and white. Anyway, I kind of think that thing has been in the past and can be again, and maybe in some places is now a kind of good form of social hygiene. It's harder and harder to get there, I think, but the sort of careful application of shame, right? Now, it just doesn't have the astringent power. It doesn't have that acid bite that it once did. It doesn't correct as it had because for any number of reasons, shame has more or less been expunged, or at least there's an attempt to expend shame in culture. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that we apportion shame at the wrong people for a long time as a moral stance, making gay people feel bad, making women feel bad. And it's like, we really had to have an anti-shame moment in the first place. And it's like, what happens is that anti-shame thing was co-opted by people who just said, well, we refuse to think bad about anything we do. Like, we're just going to have a moral moment where anything we do is the right decision. And, it goes haywire where it's hard to appropriate. Again, I think that I felt plenty of shame and I will continue to feel plenty of shame when I get something wrong or when I make a mistake. And that's fine. For me, I'm an old man. It's a corrective. I live in that world. That's my ecosystem. I will fix myself if I feel a proper amount of shame and I want to realize that I hurt somebody's feelings or I did something shitty. That is the corrective I will use, is shame to do it. But that doesn't work with everybody.
I've been getting a little bit of flack just because my dad died 9/11.
Bill, is there any aspect of the Riyadh Comedy Festival and or the reaction to it that fills you with that familiar sensation of jealousy?
I don't think so. It's improbable, though, that it may seem like that free speech warriors like Chappelle would take the money to be. And no, I love this term. I forgot. I don't know who came up with it. They were called beheadliners. The comedians who went over there to Bonesaw Junction. No, the reality is that we're kind of already living in the mirror, flip side, upside down version of hell. The sulfurous bog. This thing is just a gas station on the side of the road, to absolute sunder devastation. This only happens when we're inside the mirror universe, like it's a symptom and not a cause of it. And I was kind of thinking, it's like I maybe in retrospect had more of a problem with Tilly Norwood last week. That's more pernicious. There's something more wicked in the AI actor thing, because it's like, that's muddying the waters as we're kind of going about in real time. But again, you need all that shit to have happened for there to be a Riyadh comedy festival, and then for Kevin Hart and Pete Davidson to take the money. It's already too late. So no, this is just a comedy festival. Again, their jokes aren't getting back to us. We just get to have a program in a healthy way. And, we already made up our minds about Dave Chappelle, but it's like now we have a new gloss on Bill Burr. Bill Burr, we've entered into a different, for instance, we've entered into a different relationship with Bill Burr. And it's like, it remains to be seen what we think of Bill Burr or how that changes his public profile. But I don't know.
I think this might be a sign of the apocalypse. The reduction of everything, if this is okay, everything's okay. If even comedians, even Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle, the tribunes of our time, if they'll just take the money, then fuck it. What's the point of anything? If there is no comedy, there is no progress. If there is no edge, if there is no truth, there is no progress. And even the attacking is bad. Even the blowback is bad, because we're in this blowback culture. Like, I hate the term cancel culture, but we seem to live off the mana of opprobrium. And we have got to do that. We have got, Mr. Rogers always said, when things are rough, look to the helpers. We have got to look to the helpers. We just have to. We need some positivity in this world. It's awfully hard. And something like this just makes it harder. So, yeah, just rolling us down the hill. So I think this does matter, Bill. I think there's a lot that matters here and possibly matters in a very negative way.
This is the crowd that's always goes, you can't say anything anymore. Right? This is the crowd that
I think that's a fair point.
Knocks our fucking block off about how open they are and what they don't get to say what they want. Well, guess what? This is what they agreed to. Artists shall not prepare or perform any material that may be considered to degrade, defame, or bring public disrepute, contempt, scandal, embarrassment, or ridicule the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, including its leadership, public figures, culture, and people, the Saudi royal family, legal system, or government, and any religion, religious tradition, religious figure, or religious practice.
Noah, let's end our podcast with our final two segments. Envy, which again, Marin kind of brought that up, and I think that was like an underlying thing in this, that comedians almost all had to question themselves. What did they think of this? Because they weren't offered. But envy and the Felonian scale, where I rank this on our XYZ axis. So what about jealousy? What does it make you feel? I
mean, like I said, I believe I'm a man of integrity. I'd love to be able to stand up and the world to pay attention when I take a stand. To show off a positive, and you could say, what's the point of integrity if it's just self-serving? But I think it could serve both points. Serve yourself and the actual, principle. I'd love to show the world that I'm a man of integrity. I'd love to show myself I'm a man of integrity. But I'm not jealous in that, I look at guys like Burr and Chappelle and even the lower names of the list, and they're so cocooned in their worlds of talent and privilege and success that, maybe this is a sign that they've lost touch with their souls. There's a great quote here. There's an article from Defector by, I'm going to mispronounce this, Samer Khalaf, about Bill Scurry, about Bill Burr and his shifting excuses. And this is a real harsh quote here. For these useful idiots, there is no difference between the oil tycoon, the migrant worker, and any average brown person who lives there. They all function as cheap material for the dumbest segment of Burr's audience, a way to avoid actually answering for any business decisions. If anyone else had said they could use the power of comedy to improve relations between the US and Saudi Arabia, Bill Burr would have eagerly made fun of them. So sorry if it's not clear. He's making fun of Burr's excuse, like, I'm bringing comedy there. We're the truth. We're opening things up. We're promoting freedom. And this is Khalaf's way of saying, you're completely full of shit. So I'm glad I'm not full of shit. But I am jealous. I'd like to say, even if I would turn it down, I would love someone to offer me $150,000 for a gig. Especially this week when I've been nickel and dimed by a few potential clients. I'm jealous of that, sure.
A few repressive regimes in the Gulf. We won't specify. We won't mention.
Well, let me put it this way. Even if I'd say no, it's a badge of honor to have been offered that. And that's something that, what's his name? Gianmarco Cerezi said. He said, look, like, if Saudi Arabia is offering you $150,000, someone else is probably offering you $50,000. So, like, do 3 of those gigs, right? And sleep better at night. So, I'd love that scenario.
Well, look, if I was a stand-up, maybe this would mean something to me. I would have taken a look at some of those offer sheets with envy. And perhaps my morals, I could sell them for $10,000. I wouldn't have been in the 3 million bucket, that's for sure, or whatever. But
2 million. I believe it was like 1.6
for one night of work. Not so bad. Jesus. But no, the thing is,
one night, something you could probably do in a sleep.
This whole thing is really icky to me. I mean, I like the fact that there are helpers, there were truth tellers, there were these people who came out looking good. Shane Gillis, the guy who's the only reason we know Shane. Well, we originally met Shane Gillis because he was fired from SNL before it even went to air because of anti-Asian things he wrote, mocking Asian people. Then he winds up having a show called Tires, I think it is. And he winds up being a guy who turned down the money. And all of a sudden, Shane Gillis is somebody who kind of like reclaims his image in the same way Bill Burr demeaned his image.
Maybe he learned something.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's like, whatever. But that's like, all right. There's a lot of strange things happening here. So what about the felonious guild, Noah? Where would you rank this in our topic?
I was looking at things that are about or supposedly about morals and principles and behavior. And so I said this equals 1/2 of the papacy. Remember, we talked about the new pope. 1/2 of the papacy minus Scott Galloway, the
podcaster,
the manosphere adjacent but positive podcaster, times 2.183. That's where you find the Riyadh Comedy Fest.
What's the
festival of fun in the desert?
I was gonna say it's the conversion. What is the currency? Is the rial? I think is that what the Saudi currency is? RIAL. Unless I missed.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what you get. You have to do the conversion on which you get paid into dollars.
It's bones of sweatshop workers.
Well, I like this is
3 femurs equals 6 eardrums.
This was pretty lame. Since it kind of involves people with more soft than hard power. Soft power is considerable for sure. And like I said, I did an attestation earlier of what soft power means. This took place thousands of miles away. Nothing's going to leave the desert except for the bad vibes. And, some guy's going to get some checks, blah, blah, blah. I can't get too worked up about it. This is as if Hilaria Baldwin took a huge rip of Galaxy gas while watching a pandemic reunion.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I put everything.
All right.
Together.
So as I said before, we're taking 1 week off, maybe 2 weeks. TBD.
Yes.
So we'll see when we see you.
Absolutely. And while we're away, look on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Soundcloud, Google Play, and YouTube for past episodes. Skeet to us at noahandbillshow.bsky.social. Write to us, Noah and Bill Show. Don't get it. Noah and Bill don't get it at gmail.com. I might know
Bill Show don't get it.
I might know the email address by this point. It's only been fucking 10 years. Again, reviews are great. We love reviews. Social media handles for us. I am at Bill Scurry on Blue Sky, at William Scurry on Twitter, Insta, all the places you really want to go. And you'll find the video component of this podcast and other videos I have made on youtube.com/AMCaesar. Now here's Noah. Where you can find him.
Bill can see this now. I'm basically being attacked by my cat at the moment.
Yeah, you're wrangling a cat.
It's both annoying and very cute.
Cat's treating you like a Saudi journalist right now.
Oh, come on. Learn about all my quiz shows at the Big Quiz Thing, bigquizthing.com, the finest in corporate and private trivia events nationwide, not in Saudi Arabia, but name another country and let's talk. Mostly all over the United States and, custom events nationwide, worldwide. I already said that. We are sometimes on social media at Big Quiz Thing, also on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I personally am occasionally on Instagram at the Noah Tarnow.
All right, everybody. So until the next episode where we talk about the local Riyadh, Saudi Arabia Stonewall Monument opening up, we don't get it.
A production of American Caesar Enterprises 2025.